I just wanted to welcome everyone to this BC Hotel Association webinar with our new premier partner, Polaron. And before we start, we are provincial-wide association. So please take time to think of where you are, but where I am today in Vancouver and often at my home in Squamish, I take time to thank the unceded lands I get to live on, play on, work on of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish Nation. So please do the same where you are today. Um, I have the great honor of introducing our first panelist on the call, who's Alex Zane from BC Hydro. So I will turn it over to you to get started. Alec.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Shauna. So I'm just going to share my screen and hello, everyone. Can I just get a quick yes from you, Shauna, that you can, in fact, see my screen?
You can get a whoop whoop. I see it. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Right on. Great stuff. So hi, everyone. My name's Alex Zane. As Shauna mentioned, I'm a program manager here at BC Hydro. And specifically, first of all, thank you for coming today. And I just want to let everyone know that I'm very excited to talk to you all today about sort of one of our current offers that we have in market right now. As mentioned, I'm a program manager for BC Hydro and specifically around demand response. So today's session, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over sort of what demand response is and then highlight one of our offers, which is called our energy storage incentive offer. I also understand that there may be some questions, which I'm not going to be monitoring the chat right now. I'll be answering those questions at the end. So please feel free to put your questions in the chat. So with that being said, I'm going to jump right in. So this slide, what I'm going to start with is taking a step back and talking to all of you right now about like, why am I here? Why am I here? Why is BC Hydro at the table? So this is a good slide to show everyone. So what I want you to think of on this slide is the blue bars are BC Hydro's infrastructure. So this is our infrastructure to meet our system capacity. This is not our generation of generating electricity, but rather our capacity to meet the needs during our peak times across the province. And if you look very closely, so the blue bars are, let's say, consider it your infrastructure. The red line is our forecast. And if you look closely in the year 2032, in our fiscal 2032 year, that red line starts to surpass our blue bar. Now, I want to be clear, I'm not saying there's going to be like blackouts, brownouts, stuff like that in 2032. No, that is not the case. Rather, we want to engage the market now and talk with the market now about demand response and that concept and how it relates to our capacity forecast. And again, our capacity forecast is really about looking at shifting or shaving that peak of our provincial sort of grid or our provincial load. And normally, from a province perspective, our grid peaks between the hours of sort of 4 and 8 or 5 and 9 p.m. So we're a residential winter peaking utility. And when I say residential, I mean it's driven by our residential customers, of course. Everyone comes home at the end of the day, and we see that peak happen sort of between that 5 and 9 or 4 and 8 p.m. timeframe. And that brings me, of course, to this slide. So what is demand response? It's a temporary reduction in demand at the utility's request over a specific time to match supply available. So with that being said, there are many different ways in which you can approach demand response or approach sort of this dealing with this peak. There's many different ways that you can see on this slide here. So there's, of course, the first one is shedding, which is really just energy efficiency. So think of it as installing a more efficient light bulb. This will take your sort of load curve and lower it throughout the day, regardless of the time. So that's our shedding. The next one is shaving, and this is the one I'm going to focus on strictly today, which is battery storage. So pretty much let's say your hotel has, a certain peak. When you reach a certain peak or a demand charge, your battery would then kick in so that you'd actually be pulling energy from your battery, not the grid. And then, of course, when it reaches a certain level, it could then go back to the grid. So that's your next area, or shaving. And again, that's the one I'm going to be focusing on a lot today. And then last, of course, is our shifting, of really just shifting non-essential electricity outside of that time frame. So as I mentioned, I'm going to talk mostly just about our energy storage incentive offer or our battery offer or our, that shaving slide that I've highlighted right here moving forward today. So what is our energy storage incentive? So it's an upfront capital investment for batteries behind the meter. What this means, it's really just a battery. And when I talk about the offer today, it's a battery on site that discharges to your site when we call a demand response event. And you may ask, well, what is a demand response event? So if you think a little bit about that concept I was talking about around demand response and sort of those peak periods of times, they only happen certain times of the day. Normally between 4 and 8 p.m. and only on certain days. Normally they are correlated with weather. So really cold days, people come home, turn all their heat on. That's when we're looking to call an event and then sort of do what we can across the province. And again, with this one, it would be shaving or having that battery discharged to your site when we call that event. Part of the offer as well, the battery does need to be automatically connected to our DERM system or our distributed energy resource management system. The offer is for new batteries only, and it's for customers either on a general service or irrigation rates or on a distribution rate. So really a business across British Columbia. So just some value propositions. Why do we have this in market right now? So some propositions for you as the customer, maybe looking at demand charge management. So if you're getting a lot of demand charges throughout your month, you can potentially use that battery to shave or not hit that demand charge every month. Perhaps you have site or panel or capacity restraints. A battery is very, very, very reliable and very quick. So a battery, pretty much when a battery takes over a building, you don't even notice whether it's the battery, whether it's the grid. Of course, if you also have sort of greenhouse gas emission targets or reducing your greenhouse gas emissions, that's another reason why. And then, as I mentioned, power quality as well. And then why does BC Hydro? Why am I here today to talk to all of you about this offer? As I just mentioned on those 3-4 slides, really around flexibility to address capacity constraints or that demand response concept. So now I'm going to jump in a little bit, and I know this may sound a little technical, but I'm going to try my best to make it sort of make sense for everyone today. So this offer, again, is installing a battery at your site. So let's say that battery, you're looking at what sort of battery you need. The way the battery works is you have a nameplate capacity. So that's the entire sort of size of that battery or capacity of that battery. And of that nameplate capacity, you're then going to have your available capacity. The available capacity is going to be less than your nameplate capacity because the battery needs a certain amount of capacity to run its software and to ensure that it's working properly. Of that available capacity, you then have your nominated capacity and your reserve capacity. So the nominated capacity is the amount that you would nominate to BC Hydro so that when we call a demand response event, that's the amount of capacity that is discharged to your site when that event is called. And then, of course, you have your reserve capacity, which is the amount of energy or the amount of sort of capacity that you would always have access to, even during a demand response event. Now, keep in mind, the available capacity is what you can use. The nominated capacity is really, again, what's nominated during the demand response event. So if we don't call an event that day, you would just be using that battery as you see fit. And then, of course, I like to highlight as well that the nominated capacity is capped at 100% of your site's average winter demand. And normally that's going to be between the hours of 5 and 9 p.m. So how does the incentive work? Really, the incentive is pretty much right here. It's a 10-year contract that you would sign with us. And the incentive is pretty much the least of these 3 different options. So batteries can be quite expensive. So what we do is we take the least of these 3 different options, which is option A, we take $10,000, we times it by the kilowatt hours nominated divided by 4, which is really just the same as option B. We take the $10,000 times it by the kilowatts nominated. Or option C, we take 80% cost of the capital project cost. And then that would be pretty much your incentive payment that BC Hydro would pay you through this program. And then there are an additional 10% in select community areas. We can talk about that a little bit later if there are questions about it, though. So a little bit about that incentive structure and calculation. So this is a hypothetical slide. This is not sort of like real numbers by any means, but just for example, if a battery, the installed cost is $644,000, you then have your available capacity, your reserve capacity, and then your nominated capacity, as you can see there are those next three columns. So we would just take option A, option B, and option C. So option A, we take $10,000 times it by the kilowatt hours divided by 4. That equals $480,000. Option B is the kilowatts nominated, times it by $10,000. So 160 times 10,000, that's 1.6 million, or 80%. Just cost of the battery. So 80% of 644,000 is 515,000. So in this example, we would pay option A to you, the customer, for that battery, or if you're going through this program. Option B, or battery 2 there, sorry, it's just another example. Again, these are hypothetical numbers. If you're looking at larger batteries, a good way to look at this is you're most likely going to be looking at that 80% cost most of the time. So once we figure out what the incentive cost is, this is how that incentive payment is really sent or sort of calculated and sent to you. So once we've calculated it, you have pretty much it's paid out prior to any event being called. So you'd get, let's say if the incentive was $1 million, you'd get $500,000 when the battery is confirmed on site. You'd then get another $250,000 or 25% when that battery is turned on. And then you'd get that last $250,000 of that $1 million when it's connected to our DERM system. And again, that DERM system allows us to automatically discharge that nominated capacity when we call a demand response event. So just some participation requirements around this program or this offer as well. Obviously, there's a lot of technical and safety standards that need to be followed. As I mentioned, it must connect to our DERM system, allowing us to discharge that battery. The battery cannot inject back to the grid. Rather, it's always discharging to your site. If the battery nominated capacity is greater than 100 kilowatts, you need to fill out a generator interconnections application. And then if it's less, you do a self-generation portal application. The participation requirements are reviewed annually by BC Hydro or myself, or not myself, but sort of our team. And then, of course, you'll be working with some consultants and installers throughout this process. The consultant or installer must be an alliance member. And again, I can provide that information out after this call. There are always a lot of questions that come up around fire and safety requirements. I'm not going to run through each point here. Rather, I just want to highlight that we do have a lot of fire and safety requirements in place as part of this program to ensure that safety is always top priority for BC Hydro. So just sort of back to sort of that performance or participation requirement. So of your nominated capacity, in order to be considered a successful event when we call a demand response event, you have to deliver 85% of the nominated capacity of your battery when we call a demand response event, and that's looked at each year. And then, of course, you have to, of that 85% participation rate, in order to also be considered a successful event, 85% of the nominated capacity needs to be discharged as well. So if we call 10 events, you'd have to participate in 9 of them. And of those 9 events, 85% of the nominated energy or capacity needs to be discharged as well. Performance is assessed annually. And if you do not meet these performance requirements, clawbacks are assessed 10% for each year because it's a 10-year commitment. Of that incentive payment, because we are paying it out prior to any event being called. So if it was, like I said, $1 million and you do not meet those participation requirements every year, it would be $100,000 per year of that clawback, again, if you did not meet your participation requirements. So just a little bit about when we may call an event and how events occur. So you are notified. We do write 12 to 24 hours here. However, it's more like 23, 24 hours notice. You're always given 1 day's notice. An event never lasts longer than 4 hours. Events can occur on consecutive days as well, and they can occur on like back-to-back days. Also, we may trigger a pre-charge event. So pretty much mean we can pre-charge that battery up to 12 hours in advance, and we may delay a recharge 12 hours post-event as well. So to give you a sense of when we actually have called events, demand response events. So I know people always ask, well, when are they called? So like I said earlier, these are normally correlated with weather. That's not a causation, but normally when it's colder days in the wintertime, that is normally when we call demand response events. However, they can be called at any time. Last winter, so November 24 to March 25, we called 7 events, as you can see here, and we're currently in our winter season right now up until March 31st. But so far, we've called 5 events that you can see on the right side. So next steps, I know this is a lot of information, and like I said, I'll probably send out the information to Shauna after, and she can distribute it to everyone on this call today. I'll provide links to this presentation, some workbooks and stuff like that. But in a nutshell, if you do work with a key account manager, we do encourage you to reach out to them to engage opportunities as well. And then, of course, it's all the stuff is on our website, so you can go through our website. And really, the first step in applying for this program is doing really the workbook here. And again, this is all on our website, but those are sort of what the next steps look like. Now, I do want to acknowledge that is a lot of information. I just stopped sharing my screen here, and I understand that. I do know that I believe Tony and Chris are going to talk about, of course, their sort of how they come into all of this and everything like that. But again, that's sort of what I'm here to talk about, strictly the program today. And with that, I'll pass it back to Shauna and stay on the call.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Alec. And yes, just as a sidebar, we absolutely are recording today's session and we will share it with everyone with some resource materials as well from BC Hydro and Polaron. And without further ado, I will turn it over to Chris Williamson and Tony Moore from Polaron. Over to you guys.
Thank you, Sean, and thank you, Alec, for going through everything. And welcome everybody today. This is something that we're really excited about going over. Just so you know, I'm the Director of Commercial Sales for Polaron across Canada. I'm not going to steal any limelight here from Chris. I'm going to pass it over to Chris right now. He's going to share his screen and go through, give you an introduction of what Polaron actually do and what we actually offer, in line with Alec's description of the program earlier as well. And then I'm going to go through a bit of a case study in regards to what these numbers actually look like on a saving aspect on a year basis and over a 10-year basis for a medium to large scale resort at the end of Chris's slide. So without further ado, Chris, I'll pass it over to yourself.
Appreciate it. Is everyone seeing this screen being shared here? Confirm?
Yeah, we can see it, Chris.
Excellent. Okay. Sorry, here. This is the beginning of it. I appreciate everyone's time today, and I'm really excited to be able to speak to you about Polaron's offering inside of the ESI program for all of the Hotel Association members in BC. To begin with, I'm Chris Williamson. I'm the Global Business Development Director for Polaron Solar. I've been working with the team now for almost 3 years. Prior to this, though, I have spent the bulk of my career actually in renewable energy and the space. I started about 20 years ago in solar, long before it was a thing that we talked about. Back in the day, you had to be crazy and rich to deal with me because it didn't make any economic sense to install a solar panel. And today, the industry has evolved into a position where we're talking about cash flow positivity on the bulk of the projects that we launch. A brief overview about Polaron is that we're one of Canada's largest solar installation groups. We have recently pivoted to being more of an energy group. And the reason for that is our offerings include solar as well as ESS, as well as EV chargers. We look at these systems as kind of business in a box. Solar will generate the energy where you manufacture that product, if you will. The battery is where we will store it or warehouse it. And then the inverter tech where we sell that product. So either through to the utility grid, potentially for some arbitrage as that becomes more attractive in the market space, or for the avoided cost of power. We can also subsequently sell that through EV chargers for high profit positions. So the way that we look at this is I do appreciate Alec coming on and talking about the BC Hydro program. We love this program, actually. I think it's one of the most effective P3 models that we've seen in the Canadian market space to date. So I'm going to look at this maybe from a little bit different vantage point that's maybe a little bit more customer focused on this and walk you through some of the similar things with a different spin on it. Because as Alec points out, this is a great program by BC Hydro. What I really see is a fantastic P3 model. He provided a lot of information on what a battery needs to do, how the program works, some of the calculations and variables, the term of the agreement. And just to begin with, we see this as BC Hydro requires the assistance of groups such as yourselves. They currently do have challenges coming up, as they had shown you from one of the first graphs, about the expected demand aspect that they're going to be realizing in the next decade. And there's two options, really. They can go ahead and build new generation options, or they can shift the time by storing energy when there's less demand on the grid and discharging it when it's high. So it's not so much only that clipping, it's actually shifting the time. in a lot of ways. The things that they're missing is the ability to manage all these assets, as well as the infrastructure and the locations to interconnect them. The most important areas that we have are some of the locations that your alliance of groups has access to. So they need meter interconnections in urban areas. They need meter interconnections in more rural areas, in beautiful locations in the middle of nowhere, as well as in downtown Vancouver. All of these will help strengthen the grid. So we'll go through this, and what Polaron brings to the table is an understanding of how to design these projects for you, how to put them together so that they function effectively for you, how to manage this battery for the entire duration of the contract. And we're going to be standing beside you to make sure that it's successful the entire time by binding ourselves to your group through the very same contract model that BC Hydro has you sign into. So you know that we're there as a partner with you, as opposed to just a provider. You guys are all great hoteliers. We are really good battery experts. I wouldn't know the first thing about handling a vacation. We don't expect that you guys would understand all the challenges and things that go into managing a battery for 10 years. So here we go. Who is Polaron? We've got 13 years of experience operating in the Canadian market space. We did start out in Ontario, and since then we've bridged from coast to coast. So we have offices all the way from Nova Scotia out to Vancouver, of course. We are playing in the solar, ESS, and EV charging spaces. We consider ourselves to be an engineering-led infrastructure firm. So we do look at our projects a little bit differently. We tend to consult more with our big clientele to come up with plans on how to handle their ESG components, and how to deploy models that are financially viable for them, but also hit their goals of maybe carbon offsets, or different capital value assets. So we do focus heavily on the engineering aspect. We are really lucky to be aligned with Genie Solar. So this is a publicly traded parent company of ours. They're listed on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. So the way that we're able to guarantee the results and guarantee the financial position is, I'm sure, things that you guys will have questions about if we're lucky enough to move forward on projects. What makes you guys financially capable. We are publicly listed on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. You can go check it out. I'm quite confident that our revenues, our reported financials will give you more than enough clarity and confidence that Polaron is the partners that you should choose. We have a global manufacturing background to support us. So these ESSs are products that we actually build. We also deploy them all over the globe. My title is actually Global Business Development Director. So I handle our offices not only in the Canadian market space on the CNA side, with a focus on energy storage, but also our office in Manila, Johannesburg. We're moving some projects now in the Middle East and hoping to open up in the Caribbean quite soon as well. So we are not just a Canadian company. That gives us access to gigawatts of experience in the energy storage space. So the real grid issue is that they've got a timing problem. The grid's making a lot of power. It's all being consumed at the same. There's a big demand that exists right at those high point times that Alec was talking about. So rising electrification and push by EV growth, other types of things that are coming online, we are moving more towards an electrified community. The urban load concentration is a challenge, and short duration extreme peaks is what they're offsetting. And I think that was probably something that everyone understood on this call. So as I had pointed out, the expensive path is build everything new. Just go out and completely double the amount of generation that exists. And then what will end up taking place is, you'll have half of the proportional consumption at those peaks. That's incredibly expensive, and it doesn't make sense because the utility actually produces more than enough energy if we could change the time of that consumption. So that's where these batteries are coming into be. This particular model, if they were to go down this road, would be expensive. It would change the base rates, and it would raise long-term costs to ratepayers. And that's not something that anyone wants to be. So the smarter path is the urban 4-hour ESS. So the decentralized energy storage in these centers, such as your hotels, allows them to dispatch, remove your load from the utility grid for those 4 hours by consuming the energy. Because keep in mind, none of this energy is being exported to the grid, right? So you're going to be incentivized for the energy storage system because BC Hydro would like you off of off the paperwork effectively for those hours, so they can lower that demand requirement. But you're actually consuming that. A lot of the questions we get is, how much is it going to cost me to play with this in the energy space? You will use all the energy that you charge that battery with. So no concerns there. It's going straight to you. So this particular area will direct peak discharge at point of use. So it'll be discharged to you. It'll avoid your load requirements at those times. It avoids long transmission losses too. So another beautiful aspect about these urbanized storage systems is that they're incredibly efficient in comparison to the energy created at a dam or the idea of doubling that generation, right? We're not losing the energy across distribution lines because distribution networks are incredibly inefficient. So there's a lot of losses. So this is very efficient because it is right there. And this will defer infrastructure build out. So why 4 hours of storage? It provides a meaningful demand reduction. This is big enough to get through some of the worst moments and then have a little bit of resiliency on both sides as well. The infrastructure grade dispatch capabilities of this are really important to understand on how this is really removing that pressure, and it's a real capacity shifting. This is not just a cosmetic clipping. There is solid outcomes from this time frame, and I think that's why it was chosen. So why the ESI works? It reduces the capital cost of storage for your investment. At the beginning, I pointed out that this is really a P3 model where BC Hydro comes in with the funding because they require a solution to the problem in order to protect ratepayers from potential increases. So they're willing to take that funding and provide it to you guys in order to secure an ESS. And then Polaron's going to come in. We are going to install this for you, hopefully, manage that asset, and be your partner in this for that time period of 10 years. And everyone wins from that point. So this is going to accelerate the deployment of them. It's going to reduce BC Hydro's capital expansion pressure, and it'll protect BC ratepayers for long term. So these types of models are even going to protect, the residential market space from huge increases if they had to go a different route. So hotels are obviously ideal hosts. That's why we wanted to speak to you guys about it today. You have year-round predictable loads. You have great existing interconnections, and you have those interconnections in incredibly needed areas. So as pointed out, some of these regions are going to be 90% offset instead of just 80% for the incentivization, and that's because of the locations. So once again, BC Hydro is the peak event dispatch and grid stability is what they're looking for. The hotel gets be the real estate host, and the tax benefit is going to you guys for this. Polaron's handling financing, engineering, 10 years operations. We've aligned all of these great outcomes for everyone to be winning through this program. So we think that we have a great winner in the offering for the ESI program. The dual dispatch structure. Keep in mind that BC Hydro pointed out that they had certain events that they wanted to take advantage of. What we're looking at doing with those batteries and all the other days that they're not dispatching is using them to offset your demand charges. So this is where Polaron's able to start offering you savings for this product. This is not just meant where you pay, 80% of the cost or 20% of the cost. BC Hydro pays 80%, and then you just hold a battery. We know how to make this cash flow positive for you. The way that we're going to do that is when we are not handling those peak events, we are using it to offset your demand charges. We are enrolling you in all the programs that are available for offsets, and we're making sure that you guys have access to the lowest possible rate payments available while having a battery for that. So the way that we're going to roll this out, hopefully, is Polaron is going to finance everything up front. We're not looking for anything from you guys in the form of cash at this time. We're going to get BC Hydro to direct payment directly off to Polaron. The hotel is going to repay the remaining 20% after the incentive. So 80% is covered by BC Hydro. 20% is going to be paid for over 10 years. Those payments are going to be lower than the avoided demand charges that we're going to be able to save you by having that battery under our control for all the other days. So this is cash flow positive from year one. The tax position that you get to enjoy on this as well is there is a couple of incentives that we'll go over. The CCA tax shield is great. It's going to improve your tax flow, your cash flow, as well as it improves your IRR. The federal ITC remains with you guys as well. So we'll show that to you in the breakdown that Tony's going to put up in just a minute here. So once again, the last point here I think that we're going to make is the risk alignment. We understand that BC Hydro had talked about clawbacks. We're there with you on those. So what's going to happen is the BC Hotel is going to sign into the agreement with BC Hydro. That will bind everyone together on that. And then Polaron is going to mirror that agreement with your group so that we're in lockstep of any of the risk positions that you experience. That's why I brought up our financial prowess at the beginning of the presentation. We wanted to let you know that we have what it takes to make you feel secure as having us as your financial partner in the success of this program. So the critical loads will be supported during outages as well. This is a great solution that adds some benefit to you guys, although it's not the primary focus. We consider this to be secondary. First is demand charge abatement, which creates cash flow positivity from year one. The second benefit is the resiliency that an ESS can handle. So we can happily set up a critical loads panel. Apologies. A critical loads panel where when power outages take place, they will have power on those circuits provided by the energy storage solution for quite some period of time. So you could be running still your point of sale systems, central lighting circuits, all kinds of backup systems, whatever's really convenient for you guys to have. And this is a seamless transition, as Alec had pointed out beforehand. Oftentimes you won't even notice that you've switched between battery and utility grid. So great backup resiliency that allows you to carry on with business in the event of a power failure, or at least roll down business. Maybe the restaurant is really popping that night, the power goes out, you still have some lights on in there. It might not be practical for you to continue serving, but you'll be able to continue serving the clients that are there as opposed to taking more, and you'll be able to sort out those checks at the end of their dining experience. So this is all cheaper than new peak generation. It reduces the need for a lot of different expansion requirements. I'm just going to quickly jump through the last couple of slides here because they're a little bit repetitive, and then I'll kick this off to Tony. The last one here that's really important is the step-by-step process. So the way that we're going to do this is we're going to look for an agreement to proceed with Polaron as a provider. If you guys have an interest in exploring this and seeing how it is that the cash position can work for you, how we'll be able to show you a cash flow positive project, then we're happy to engage. Polaron will design an ESI based on the utility data. So we're going to handle all this for you. All of those complex calculations are done by us. We'll show you exactly what they look like. After you say that you like that idea, we're going to properly get you to frame an email to the key account management for that engagement letter to collect data and advise them that you're looking at moving forward on this. Then there's an ESI technical submission, an ESI technical review, and then an agreement to fund provided by BC Hydro. At that point in time, we're going to create and execute. We're going to execute an agreement between all parties where we're bound to the agreements that you guys are bound to, and then installation and commissioning, and then 10-year monitor operation. So I think that we are going to make it as easy as possible for everyone, and I hope that you're able to see the value in what we're presenting today. And in short, here's the contacts for everyone to reach out to us if you have any interest in pursuing this. We really hope you do. There's no obligation in this. It's really quite simple. We'll be able to tell you very quickly whether your site applies or whether it doesn't. We want to be as efficient with your time as possible. So get in touch with Tony or myself if you want to move forward. And I will stop sharing now and leave it off to Tony Moore.
Thank you, Chris, for that in-depth review. So let me just make sure I'm going to share the correct screen. on here. So what we want to go over right now is a bit of the financials on what this looks like. Now, you will get this. It's more of an executive summary. But just to really put this into purpose, this is more of a medium to large scale resort that we're looking at right now for the demand. So we've gone over numbers. Chris has gone into a lot of detail. Alec has gone into a lot of detail about the fundamentals of the battery. But at the end of the day, what does it actually mean as a cash flow? What does it actually mean to reduce your operational costs? And the big thing that I really want to highlight here is leading on from what Chris mentioned. We're not just talking about savings on the battery. We're actually guaranteeing the savings that you are going to get. We're guaranteeing the performance of this equipment. So if we lean back to what Alec mentioned, where if the battery doesn't perform to the level that it needs to, they could effectively call a clawback on some of that incentive. And what Chris referenced, that we're actually going to be engaged in parallel to that agreement, it's down to Polaron to make sure that that battery is actually working properly. And that's removing the risk from the hotel and the business there. We're guaranteeing the performance, we're guaranteeing the savings. To put that into perspective, if you were to save $250,000 in demand charges in year one, perfect. You're in a positive position. But if you were only to save $200,000 on your demand charge, and that comes through all the reporting, Polaron will effectively cut you a check for the differential. We'll cut you a check for the $33,000. So this is where the peace of mind, the risk adverse approach is really coming into play. And we know what we're talking about when it comes to batteries. As Chris mentioned, we've deployed them all over the world. So the guaranteed savings, we won't get into too much how we work that out exactly, but that's how it works. But what we also want to look at is what is the actual cost of the battery. We talk about 20%. That's after the incentive from BC Hydro. There's some tax incentives we'll talk about. But really, that monthly repayment for this system would be just under 110,000. The guaranteed savings is 233. So the savings are actually paying for the system and putting the hotel in a cash flow positive situation, while also having grid independence or grid resiliency in blackout or brownout situations. In line number one, there is also some tax incentives. They've not been broken down onto here as well, but that's leading on from what Chris mentioned about the ITC and the CCA tax shield we can tap into. That would actually put you in a cash flow positive situation. So for this medium to large scale resort, in year one from deploying the battery at the end of their fiscal year, it's not only paying for itself, they're actually going to be over $400,000 cash flow positive. Over the time, over a 10-year span, then this system with the guaranteed savings, guaranteed performance, and operation and maintenance actually covered by Polaron for members of the association, this battery would have actually reduced operational costs by over $1.5 million, while also paid for itself as well in this instance. So I wanted to give you the metrics. Obviously, we will share this executive summary and give you a bit more information as a one-pager if you want to review the documentation, how it really works. And one of the big bonuses is normally operation maintenance is separate, but we are including it as part of the agreement with BCHA on there as well. So I'm going to send this back over to Shauna, and if there's any questions as well, actually before I do, Shauna, if there's any questions, please put them in the chat. And I also just wanted to highlight as well that me and Chris with a battery will also be at the BC Hotel Association Summit in the middle of April. So that's something that we're really excited about, not just being there to shake your hand, but you can actually physically see one of the batteries that's going to be there. It's our flagship battery, something that we're really excited about. But you want to come down, meet us, shake our hands, touch it. You might not be able to get inside it. You can have a look at it. Then definitely please do so. We're really excited about being.
That's great. Thank you so much. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Tony. And yes, please feel free to use the chat if you have any specific questions now. We certainly have time to answer those. But I will just repeat that we will be sharing the presentation. The webinar was recorded, and we also have a case study and some other resources to go along with both Alec and Tony and Chris's presentation to help you dive a little deeper. And yes, we also look forward to seeing this battery at Summit this year, and hope you all have the chance to take time to walk through and meet these folks. So yes, we are monitoring. If we have any questions, please feel free.
And just as we're waiting for a few questions to
Mhm.
potentially come through there, Shauna, we have actually had a couple of hotels already sign up and go through the process, something that we are really excited about doing. So that's just at the inventory stage now about the process, but yeah, really appreciate the partnership and the agreement that we can actually roll out. And if it works, then the numbers speak for themselves.
Well, I think you've just everybody's been so mesmerized and excited by the presentation that I don't see any questions unless Gareth sees something that I don't. But I think we'll give it another minute or so. Otherwise, you may have some questions after folks dive a little deeper into the materials and absorb all the great information. Tony has his contact information as well, so you can reach out to Tony directly if you have specific questions. But yeah, I don't see any questions. Again, Gareth, unless you see something that I don't.
No, I don't see
Yeah,
anything
okay.
that's come through the chat or Q&A box. So,
Mhm.
yeah,
Great.
with that, yeah.
Excellent. Well, with that, we'll give everyone a little bit of time back and enjoy your day and look forward to continuing to forge this relationship and this partnership with all of you and with Polaron. Thank you so much.